Hi all, in this video, let's discuss how and why to use HTML5 data attributes. Yep. So before that, I will just want to show you one small thing so if you observe here, so I have used one div. I'm writing an highlight is equal to true. So this is an invalid HTML attribute. So whereas if you see here, the width is a valid attribute, but the value large is an invalid value. If you provide an invalid attributes and values here, of course, HTML will not throw any error, but it is not a valid thing. We can't do anything with this. So with the HTML5, we have an data attribute where we can provide our custom data, any of the custom information to the elements, any of the HTML elements. We can provide the data attributes. So where we can store some information which would be unique to that page. So there would be some naming convention like this. We need to start with data hyphen, and thereafter you can keep anything like numbers, small characters, hyphens, colons, anything except the uppercase characters. You should not use uppercase characters here. So that is number one rule in defining the data attribute, and the value here should be an string value. You can any of the type conversions we need to do in the JavaScript. So the second rule would be this value would be the string value. And this is about how to define the data attribute for elements. So these data, custom data attributes can be created to all the HTML elements. Can do this to all the HTML elements, right? We came to know what all the data attributes, how to define them. So let's discuss what all the how to access them. For example, I have this data attribute. How to access this data attribute? When I click one of the element, we'll be getting that reference to that particular element. And we have two ways to access this data attribute. Number one is get attribute. With this get attribute, and I will define what is that data attribute. And this data attribute result would be getting here in the rest type. So this is the first way of accessing the data attributes. So I will be getting the wedge if I click the first element, and in this rest type, restaurant type, I will be getting the wedge as wedge. Okay. So the second type would be with the dataset API. This is a dataset API which will not work in the older browsers like i11, and it will work in all the latest modern browsers. This dataset API will help us when I click this, it will take this reference dot dataset, and you will be accessing this distance like this. Data hyphen next to data hyphen. You can give this distance so that I will be getting now here. I will be getting 2 miles. So now this is how we need to access the data attributes with the dataset API. What if I have like this? So I can also name the data attribute like this, right? Data hyphen miles. So in this case, you need to keep here the camel case like rest dot dataset dot distance miles. Here I have given an camel case to access this attribute, this data attribute. So this is how we need to access. These are the two ways to access the data attributes in the JavaScript. How come we can access this in the CSS? So this is how we can access these custom data attributes in the CSS. List item and provide that item with this value so that all the related custom vegetarian, data types with respect to vegetarian will be given one color. Data type with respect to French would be given one color. With respect to German, we can give one color. So we can group the elements and we can give the related elements one color. So that way we can differentiate the types of the food. So this is how we can access the data attributes by using the CSS to color those elements. So now we have discussed what is data attributes and how to access them in the JavaScript and how to access them in the CSS. So let's see that in the browser. So this is an sample example which was cloned from SitePoint. So here, if you click this element, so we could able to access this. This is 2 miles, and also the restaurant name. We have wrote two alerts to pick the data in two different ways. So these are the two different ways we have picked the data, and we are showing this. Okay, fine. We got some information or knowledge on data attributes. How to use and what is that? So now let's discuss why to use this data custom data attributes. So why to use this data attributes? If we have a class attribute, what does this class attribute do? It only styles the particular element. We use this class attribute only to style the elements, nothing more than that. This class attribute can't store the information. So for example, if we want to store some of the information, we can store like we can only do the wedge information can be stored, and all the related wedge items we can color those are. But we can't give the data information like how much distance or what all the data identifiers for each and other restaurants. So here we have given three n number of, we can give n number of data attributes to the same element. Here we have given three data elements like data type, I mean, which restaurant it is, like a vegetarian, and how much distance it is, and what is the restaurant ID as well. So we have given three different custom data information to the same element. We can give a number of custom data embedded. We can embed the custom information in an element. We can do any number of data attributes we can use. Whereas to a class, we can only use one item. If you want to use another item, you need to differentiate, or you need to give a space, and you need to access. How to access that? If you give a name space as well, to access those elements it would be difficult. So that's the reason class attributes or id attributes, those are selectors. We can use them as a selectors, not to store the information. So the purpose of this data attributes is to store some minimal information where we can use in that page to show the users like tooltip information or something like that. So the best example which I have seen in the recent times is the Cypress. Cypress, this is an end-to-end front-end testing framework. I mean, we can test, it's like a BDD scenarios. We can write BDD tests. It will be testing each and every part. So here they have given like, they will be using data attributes to identify each and every element. Why exactly they uses the data attribute instance? If the application is a dynamic, here you can see the text. If the application is dynamic, the class names and IDs would be changing. It would not be the same. So if you pick the selectors with the CSS styles or IDs, then the application would be breaking, because the application is dynamic. So the CSS and JavaScript IDs would be changing randomly. So the application breaks at one point. So that's the reason this Cypress will be using they will add the data attribute to make it easy to target a particular element. With the help of these data attributes, they can easily target an element. So they will not depend upon targeting on CSS attributes like ID, class, and tags, because these may be changing randomly. So this is the best use case I have found. So that's all about data attributes in the HTML. So thanks for watching.